The world is filled with ancient structures that simply refuse to fit into the timelines we've been taught. Across continents, megalithic monuments rise from desert plains, jungle floors, and mountain valleys. Structures built with such scale and mathematical precision that modern machines would struggle to replicate them. Yet somehow, mainstream academia attributes these achievements to civilizations armed with nothing more than copper chisels, stone hammers, and ropes. No site embodies this contradiction more than the Giza Plateau. Egyptologists claim the pyramids were built around 4,500 years ago by the Old Kingdom Egyptians. But the closer we look, the more the story begins to unravel. The monuments show none of the typical construction evidence we would expect. No inscriptions explaining their purpose, no blueprints, no transitional stages, no quarry ramps, no contemporary records describing the building process. Instead, Giza hides a growing list of anomalies that conventional explanations simply cannot account for. Massive granite blocks weighing up to several dozen tons form the internal chambers of the Great Pyramid. Hard basalt slabs once paved the plateau in a geometric arrangement known today as the Giza basalt floor, a surface so precisely worked that engineering tool marks still remain on the surviving fragments. These marks, parallel ridges, circular cutting signatures, and smooth machine-like finishes hint at high-speed tools far beyond the capabilities of Copper Age craftsmen. And yet, the official story remains unchanged. Even more intriguing are the massive megaliths found scattered around Giza's foundations, partially hidden beneath the desert sands. Some of these blocks, especially those surrounding the base of the pyramids, are so large that they rival the heaviest stones ever quarried in human history. Their placement required engineering and technology that modern cranes would struggle to achieve. But academia rarely highlights these stones. They remain quietly ignored. The granite and basalt used throughout the plateau are among the hardest stones on Earth. Granite cannot be efficiently shaped with copper tools. The Mohs hardness scale alone disproves that notion. Yet the blocks show crisp, precise surfaces, and in many cases, knife-sharp edges that defy primitive craftsmanship. Why would an ancient culture choose materials nearly impossible for them to work with? And why has mainstream research provided no satisfying explanation for how these monuments were built? Even the architectural decisions raise questions. Why do the pyramids lack hieroglyphics? Ancient Egyptians decorated everything tombs, temples, walls, columns, but the most significant structure they supposedly created is completely bare. Not a single inscription inside the Great Pyramid explains who built it or why. If the pyramids were tombs, why no sarcophagus lids, funerary art, or mummies? Why no soot from torches, no signs of ritual use, no hidden chambers filled with grave goods? The silence of the monuments is deafening. Researchers are also puzzled by the absence of interior staircases or ramps, suggesting these structures were never intended to be entered by humans. Could the pyramids have served a function entirely different from what we've been taught? Ancient texts may hold a clue. One artifact rarely acknowledged by mainstream Egyptology is the inventory stela, discovered at Giza. This stone inscription, authenticated by scholars like James Breasted and Gaston Naspero, records the activities of Pharaoh Khufu. What makes it remarkable is that it clearly states Khufu did not build the Great Pyramid. Instead, he repaired structures that were already ancient in his time, including the Sphinx, which the text says was struck by lightning and recarved. If true, this single artifact flips the entire Giza timeline on its head. Giza may not be a product of the Old Kingdom. It may be a remnant of something far older, something lost. The deeper we investigate, the more the evidence points toward an earlier, far more advanced civilization, one capable of machining stone, transporting megaliths of unimaginable scale, and designing structures aligned with celestial bodies with microscopic precision. Consider this. The Great Pyramid is aligned to true north with an error of less than 0.05 degrees, better accuracy than most modern buildings. Its measurements encode pi, the golden ratio, and astronomical cycles. Its internal chambers demonstrate architectural mastery that would challenge engineers today. And yet, we still cannot reproduce the construction using only the tools attributed to the ancient Egyptians. Some researchers argue that the pyramids were never meant to be tombs, but machines, devices designed for energy production, astronomical observation, or something more esoteric. This isn't fantasy. It's derived from the data: resonant chamber acoustics, electrostatic properties of limestone, and the presence of granite, naturally piezoelectric material. But if the pyramids weren't built by the Old Kingdom Egyptians, then who built them? Some clues lie in the stone itself. The gigantic megaliths of the Valley Temple, for example, dwarf anything used in the pyramids. These blocks, many weighing over 100 tons, fit so precisely that a sheet of paper cannot slide between them. Even today, few nations possess cranes capable of manipulating such stones with this level of precision. The same style appears in structures linked to the Khafre and Menkaure pyramids, reused and built over by later Egyptians. To avoid addressing these architectural contradictions, mainstream academia simply calls them mysterious, ritualistic, or symbolic, but the truth is simple: they cannot explain them. What's even more astonishing is that the largest blocks at Giza may not be part of the pyramids at all. Some are hidden beneath the sand foundation blocks, so massive that thousands of tourists walk over them every year without realizing it. Early surveys suggest some may weigh between 500 and 750 tons, rivaling the famous Stone of the Pregnant Woman in Baalbek. These stones were not carved where they rest. They were transported. By whom? How? And for what purpose? These are the questions that modern archaeology avoids. But answers may lie just beneath the surface literally. As the evidence grows, it becomes increasingly clear that the Giza Plateau is not a simple burial ground, but a layered archaeological puzzle, one that has accumulated structures from different epochs, different cultures, and possibly different civilizations altogether. The deeper one digs, both literally and historically, the more the inconsistencies pile up. Take the Valley Temple, one of the most overlooked yet astonishing structures in Egypt. Its interior walls, floors, and pillars are composed of enormous granite blocks weighing tens of tons each. Many exhibit machine-level precision, polished surfaces, tight joints, and interlocking shapes that suggest a level of planning far beyond what copper chisels could achieve. The same construction style reappears in the Khafre Causeway, where multiple 100-ton blocks lie stacked with such accuracy that even modern engineers marvel at the workmanship. But here's the problem. The Valley Temple is officially attributed to the same Egyptians who supposedly built the pyramids. Yet no inscription, no image, and no historical record describes its construction. Its architecture is megalithic, while the pyramid's casing stones are finer, more refined, and obviously from a later period. The closer you look, the more it becomes clear that these structures may not belong to the same technological era. Some Egyptologists argue that the Old Kingdom simply built on top of an older foundation. Others tried to sidestep the issue entirely. They label the megalithic work as ritual architecture, offering no explanation for how it was created. But the patterns are undeniable. When we compare the granite blocks of the Valley Temple to those found in Peru, Lebanon, and even Turkey, the similarities are striking. Massive, perfectly cut megaliths inserted seamlessly into the landscape. Walls that look molded rather than carved. Stone surfaces that could only have been shaped with high-energy tools. This is not primitive work. This is engineering. The more we examine Giza's bedrock, the stranger things become. Much of the plateau rests on a vast expanse of artificially leveled limestone bedrock, a platform so large, so uniform, that its creation alone would require an engineering operation on a continental scale. Some areas show laser-like straight cuts. Others reveal channels carved with such uncanny precision that mainstream archaeology has no convincing explanation. Buried under sand and time are fragments of a once grand infrastructure: drainage channels, retaining walls, shafts, tunnels, and layouts that appear more aligned with a technological complex than a funerary site. When radar and ground-penetrating scans were performed in the 1970s and again in the early 2000s, anomalies emerged everywhere: voids, chambers, and corridors extending deep below the pyramids. Many of these findings were quietly archived, their details never released to the public. Behind closed doors, Egypt's Supreme Council of Antiquities has dismissed or restricted several independent research teams. But why stop legitimate scientific inquiry unless the results contradict established narratives? One of the most controversial pieces of evidence is the inventory stela, an inscription that mainstream scholars attempt to dismiss but cannot fully disprove. It states plainly that Khufu found the Great Pyramid and the Sphinx already standing when he arrived on the plateau, and that he merely restored older temples around them. The stela also describes an event rarely discussed in academia: a lightning strike that damaged the original Sphinx's head, forcing later Egyptians to recarve it. This raises a stark question. If the Sphinx predates Khufu, then the entire Giza complex may be thousands of years older than the dynastic Egyptians. The lack of hieroglyphs on the pyramids further supports this. Egyptians recorded everything from daily rituals to fishing trips and tax lists. Yet the most monumental structure ever built? Silence. The absence speaks volumes. Not only is there no record of construction, there isn't even a record of planning. It is as though the pyramids existed before the Egyptians themselves. If the Old Kingdom inherited Giza, then who built it? Clues may lie in the erosion patterns of the Sphinx enclosure. Geologist Robert Schoch famously pointed out that the Sphinx exhibits water erosion, not wind erosion. This would place its creation during a time when the Sahara was green, nearly 10,000 to 12,000 years ago. Mainstream scholars reject this because it pushes Egypt's history back into a time when humanity was supposedly primitive. But the stones tell their own story. The Sphinx, the Valley Temple, and parts of the Giza Plateau show evidence of intense rainfall that simply did not occur during Egypt's dynastic period. Only an earlier civilization, predating recorded history, could have carved the monument. And if such a civilization existed, then the pyramids may not just be older, they may have served a function far more advanced than anything assumed. Some researchers suggest the pyramids were part of an energy grid, using water, acoustic resonance, and electromagnetic properties to generate or amplify power. Others believe they served astronomical or geodetic purposes, encoding mathematical constants and aligning with celestial cycles. Whether these functions were symbolic, scientific, or technological remains a mystery, but the design is undeniably advanced. Perhaps the most staggering evidence lies not above the ground, but below it. Legends speak of an underground labyrinth, a massive network of chambers said to contain records of humanity's earliest knowledge. Ancient Greek historians described it as more magnificent than anything above it. For centuries, it was considered myth. Yet in 2008, a joint Belgian-Egyptian team conducted a large-scale survey of the Hawara region using advanced ground-penetrating radar. The scans revealed a vast grid of chambers beneath the desert floor, exactly where ancient texts said the labyrinth existed. The find should have changed world history. Instead, it was quietly suppressed. According to the team's own published statement, the underground complex spans hundreds of meters, made of a material as hard as granite and arranged in a precision-crafted grid. The evidence was undeniable, an enormous subterranean structure still intact, untouched by archaeologists. And yet, almost immediately after the announcement, access to the site was restricted. Media coverage disappeared. Funding was pulled. The discovery faded into obscurity. Why would such a monumental archaeological revelation be hidden? perhaps because it points to a chapter of human history older and more advanced than anything currently accepted. As researchers peel back more layers of the Giza Plateau, the evidence for a lost epoch grows increasingly difficult to dismiss. It isn't just the architecture, it's the engineering logic behind it. Granite beams weighing up to 100 tons lie stacked above the king's chamber in a configuration that seems almost designed to challenge modern understanding. These stones weren't simply placed. They were lifted, aligned, and fitted with precision that borders on mathematical perfection. And they weren't the largest. Around the plateau are blocks far bigger than anything inside the pyramids. Some foundation stones on the eastern flank of Khufu's pyramid stretch so long and deep into the earth that their true size has never been fully measured. Estimates suggest weights as high as 500 to 750 tons, gigantic monoliths that rival the stone of the pregnant woman in Baalbek. These aren't decorative, they are structural, and they appear to have been transported and positioned with a mastery that contradicts every conventional timeline. Even the granite and basalt flooring around Giza carries a signature that modern specialists can recognize instantly. High-speed machining. Long, sweeping cuts, parallel abrasions, clean curved edges, and the unmistakable ridges of rotary blades mark the stones. Engineers familiar with industrial fabrication have identified these as the calling cards of powered cutting tools, not primitive scraping with copper chisels. Yet the orthodox timeline insists the Egyptians did not have machines, so the evidence is ignored rather than answered. This pattern continues in the Menkaure pyramid, the smallest of the Giza trio, yet one of the most revealing. The casing stones that survive on its lower layers are polygonal, fitted with an interlocking complexity rarely found in Egypt but common in ancient Peru. The blocks are enormous, beveled, and slotted like pieces of a puzzle. They bear erosion patterns far older than the smoother, younger casing stones found on Khufu and Khafre's monuments. Even the internal structure is unusual. Multiple chambers, tunnels, and granite portcullises suggest a function beyond simple burial architecture. Excavations in the 19th century revealed bones within a coffin attributed to Menkaure, but radiocarbon dating exposed them as too recent. A replacement burial, not original, not part of the pyramid's true story. Again, the evidence points to inheritance, not authorship. And then there are the cracks, subtle, telling cracks that hint at stresses the pyramids were never meant to bear. The great lintel beam in the Grand Gallery is fractured clean through, as though strained by immense weight or mechanical activity long after its original construction. Some researchers propose that machinery once stood above the chamber, pulleys, counterweights, or systems designed to operate within a structure far more dynamic than a tomb. The farther one travels down these avenues, the more the pyramids begin to resemble relics of a technological system, not ceremonial monuments. A kind of ancient machine, a generator, a resonance device, a structure meant to channel forces we no longer understand. The parallels grow even sharper when we compare Giza to the Bosnian pyramid complex. Though still controversial, the Bosnian structures exhibit unmistakable signs of artificial construction. Terraces, blocks, tunnels, and a network of subterranean water channels, engineered with deliberate angles and flow patterns. After years of analysis, researchers confirmed that the river beneath the Bosnian pyramid was redirected artificially, creating an energetic system that appears engineered rather than natural. The idea seems wild until you realize that Giza also sits atop a complex of water channels, ancient, structured, and purposeful. Water coursing beneath stone, cavities conducting pressure, chambers designed with precise acoustics. Electricity has formulas, water has flow, but energy, in ancient terms, had harmony. Perhaps these sites were built to interact with all three. Over time, a striking pattern emerges. Similar construction techniques, similar block sizes, Similar astronomical alignments and similar erosion markers appear across continents in Egypt, Peru, Turkey, Lebanon, India, and even the Pacific. Some call it coincidence. Some call it diffusion. Others whisper of a civilizational memory stretching back into prehistory, a lost world that understood mathematics, stone, water, and resonance on a level we are only beginning to rediscover. If such a civilization existed, its influence would not only appear on Earth's surface, but beneath it. And this brings us back to the ancient legends of a labyrinth beneath Giza, the massive underground complex described by Herodotus, spoken of by Strabo, recorded by Egyptian priests, and sought for centuries by explorers. A place with thousands of chambers, records of ancient knowledge, blueprints of a forgotten world. Most scholars dismissed the legend as fantasy, until modern scans proved otherwise. The 2008 expedition found exactly what the ancients described: a vast, structured grid of rooms made of a highly resistant stone, extending far below the surface. Not natural, not random, engineered. The dig team concluded that this structure almost certainly represented the roof of a massive subterranean construction, one that still lies untouched beneath the desert. The discovery should have rewritten textbooks. It should have dominated global headlines. Instead, the site was sealed, the findings quietly buried, and inquiries discouraged. Why? What lies beneath Giza that must remain hidden? A library? A vault? A technological chamber? Or something far older, something that challenges the very timeline of civilization? As the evidence piles up, one truth becomes harder to ignore. The surface of Giza is only the beginning. Its secrets lie deeper, older, and more complex than most historians are willing to admit. Beneath the blazing Egyptian sun, tourists walk unknowingly over what may be one of the greatest archaeological secrets on Earth, an engineered substructure so vast that ancient writers described it as a city beneath a city, a labyrinth with thousands of rooms, corridors, and records from a forgotten age. For centuries, scholars dismissed it as exaggeration or myth. Yet when modern scanning finally probed the sands of Hawara and Giza, the images revealed an unmistakable pattern: geometric voids, parallel galleries, and chambers cut from an incredibly dense, highly resistant stone. These formations do not resemble natural caves or erosion pockets. They appear designed, intentional, built. The official expedition report described a grid of gigantic size, beginning beneath an artificially laid stone platform and extending 8 to 12 meters down. The team suggested that this grid may be the roof of a monumental complex, exactly as the ancient texts described. But instead of triggering global excitement, the findings were shrouded in silence. The site was closed. Further investigation was halted, and whispers began spreading among researchers that something on the plateau is not meant to be uncovered. Not yet, perhaps not ever. Time and again, the Giza Plateau presents anomalies that defy the limits of conventional timelines. Stone erosion that predates dynastic Egypt, cavities that suggest deliberate subterranean planning, blocks so massive that even modern cranes would struggle, staircases that lead nowhere, doorways sealed since antiquity, shafts whose purpose remains unknown. With every scan, every seismic reading, every radar sweep, more voids appear, mysterious interior spaces that have yet to be explored. Some are thermal anomalies. Others are too deep or too inaccessible to reach without destabilizing the structure. And still, they are there, silent chambers holding answers to questions humanity has asked for centuries. The deeper investigators dig, the more they encounter another force: resistance. Data sets that reveal ancient habitation dates are dismissed as measurement errors. Artifacts recovered from deep strata are labeled intrusive. Finds that contradict established chronologies are reburied, sealed off, or locked away in private archives. For researchers who approach the subject with open curiosity, This becomes a battle on two fronts, uncovering truth while navigating the protective walls of academic orthodoxy. Many lose funding. Some lose credibility. And those who persist are branded fringe thinkers, regardless of how meticulous their evidence may be. Yet the stones do not lie. Deep within the outer walls of the pyramids and temples are layers of megalithic masonry so eroded that they must have endured not centuries, but epochs. Perfectly preserved beneath them lie later additions, visibly younger, sharply cut surfaces that reveal at least two phases of construction, possibly more. The pattern is identical to sites around the world where elder civilizations built foundations and later cultures expanded upon them, inheriting rather than engineering. At Giza, this inheritance seems undeniable. The hieroglyphic-covered temples are young. The casing stones belong to the dynastic period. But the megaliths, the immense, ancient, weathered colossi, are remnants of something far older. Some researchers trace these signatures thousands of miles away, finding the same polygonal blocks in Peru, the same core drilling marks in Lebanon, the same interlocking stone patterns in Turkey and Japan. These civilization fragments, spread across continents, hint at a lost global knowledge system, a blueprint shared long before recorded history, or perhaps long forgotten by the civilizations that followed. If such a culture existed, its ruins would appear precisely as they do today, eroded, fractured, repurposed, misunderstood. Against this backdrop emerges one of the most haunting pieces of evidence, a statue known as the Starving of Saqqara. It depicts elongated skulls, emaciated bodies, and an indecipherable script carved into its base, a language unseen anywhere else. No expert has been able to classify it. No historian can firmly date it. Its existence challenges everything about the accepted developmental timeline of Egyptian culture. It stands like a ghost of a civilization erased, a remnant of a story we no longer possess the ability to read. Where did these beings come from? What were they recording? Why did their script vanish from history? The more one studies the statue, the more it resembles the missing puzzle piece, a direct artifact from the era that built the earliest megaliths. A relic from a civilization obliterated long before the rise of dynastic Egypt. Its presence in Alexandria, far from Saqqara, suggests displacement, scavenging, or even an echo of an ancient diaspora. As theories accumulate, lost continents, ancient engineers, forgotten technologies, global cataclysms, the plateau remains unmoved, indifferent to our interpretations. The pyramids do not argue. The labyrinth does not reveal itself. The megaliths do not bend to established chronology. They simply exist, waiting for a world willing to listen without preconception. We stand in an age where technology finally allows us to probe below the surface, to peer into the chambers of giants, to reconsider timelines once carved in stone. And though the answers remain buried, the questions grow louder. Who built Giza's oldest layers? What existed before Egypt? What knowledge was hidden beneath the plateau? What power once ran through these monuments? Water, resonance, energy, something else entirely? These mysteries endure because the evidence has outgrown the explanations. And until the sands shift, the chambers open, and the truth steps back into the light, Giza will remain exactly what it has always been, a monument not to a civilization we know, but to one we have yet to rediscover.